Recently I got asked a question in a video that I couldn't answer on the spot, so I had to take some time and I've finally come up with an answer. So the video in question was one of my AMAs, which is an Ask Me Anything. If you want to go check them out, feel free. There should be one linked at the end of the video. In these videos I sit down and play a video game while going through the comment section of the last video. Now these questions can range from what is your favourite video game of all time to what do you think happened to Madeleine McCann, which is actually a question I got asked in the last video. But one of the questions I got asked was, what is the best tip you can give to a new collector? And it had me stumped. I didn't have a clue what to say because a fair few things ran through my mind and I was thinking, well, is that really the single biggest tip I could give someone who has just started collecting or is considering getting into collecting? So the obvious ones jumped out at me straight away. So don't overpay for things. I mean, it's pretty simple, but I guess it can be a pretty big tip to give someone. If you see a video game in a shop and you think, well, 25 quid for that is quite good, it's Black Friday, it must be good, it's on sale, I'll buy it. Well, wait a minute, have a little look, go on Amazon, go to other shops and things and have a little look to see if that is actually the cheapest. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but that is a pretty big tip in a way. But I was thinking, well, is that really the biggest tip I could give someone? No, it isn't. Another tip, of course, is to not be too trigger happy when you see something. And I thought about this and I thought, well, actually, that is a pretty good tip and that might be the best one I could give. Don't just jump at something because you think it's a fantastic deal. It depends on how you're running it. So you're looking for things to buy so you can flip, you can make profit, and then you use that profit to buy video games. If you're doing it that way specifically, you need to pick and choose when you're going to buy said video game. So I've seen a fair few people do these type of challenges where they start off with like $10, for example, and they try and build up a nice cash balance and then they start acquiring games. And a lot of the comments in those videos is, when are you going to start buying video games? All you seem to be doing is flipping calculators. Why are you not spending this cash that you have? And the answer for that is because if I spend it now, just made £30 profit and I have £30 in the series. If I then go and buy Dead Island on the PS5, that's £30 to £35 of my money gone, and then I am broke. That's it, done, it's over, right? I have one game in my collection and that's the end of it. You need to pick and choose when you acquire games and when you put them into your collection. So that is a pretty big tip, and it kind of goes hand in hand with another one that I thought. Don't put that grail at the forefront of your mind. So when you start collecting, there's bound to be that one game that you're interested in that is going to cost you a pretty penny. Now, I don't really have one in my mind necessarily, but there are a fair few games on the Mega Drive that will run me about 60, maybe £70. And of course there are hundreds, well, maybe not hundreds, but there are plenty of games that are beyond that. You know, there's a Carnage game, for example, that I saw fairly recently in a CEX, which was well over £100. It looks kind of cool. It's not really my thing, but I'm sure many people who are just about to start collecting or have recently started would have that on their list. Now, the one thing that you don't really want to do is to go after that before you do anything else, because if you are trying to buy things and flip things and get credit that way and sort of thing, it's going to take you a long time, you know, unless you are very lucky and you walk into a charity shop or a boot sale and you find something on sale for £5 that you could flip for 120 and you can buy it straight away. You are going to be very lucky to do that. It has happened. I've had it happen to me, funnily enough. However, it's not likely to happen. You know, that is a one in a blue moon situation. What's going to happen is you find something for a £5 you can flip for £12 and you take that £5 profit after fees. That's pretty much how it's going to work, and you can scale it, of course. But if you go for that grail first before you go for anything else, by the time you get to that grail, you are going to be a little bit bored, a little bit frustrated. You're going to convince yourself that this isn't really working, and then you're going to start spending money that you wouldn't normally spend on money that you don't have to spend. And I thought, well, that is a pretty big tip. That's a pretty good one. That could be the most important one. But no, it's not in my opinion anyway. So you might be wondering by now, well, what the hell is this tip? Can you please tell us? Something that I suffered with quite badly in the very beginning of building a video game collection was going on to places like Facebook Marketplace, not as much as boot sales because boot sales is a different kettle of fish altogether, and seeing deals that I thought were really good and not looking at them closer, not doing my research. And that was one of the biggest tips I gave when I first started, and I kept saying, I need to do my research. You should do your research. Look into things before you pull the trigger. Don't be too hasty and send messages to people on Facebook saying that you'll offer them this amount of money without really looking at what's on offer. There are plenty of things out there that you would consider to be a very good deal, and then when you look at it closer, you're thinking, hang on a minute, that game isn't worth as much as I thought. That game is worthless, and I thought that was worth a fair few quid, and now I've made a mistake. Now, it's easier to backtrack track on something like Facebook Marketplace than it is in a car boot sale, for example. That's one of the biggest places people will make mistakes. They'll go into a car boot, have a little look around, and they see a game. They won't look it up. They know in their mind that game is worth money, and they will buy it for the asking price. They don't even barter, they walk away, and then when they get home they look it up. Oh, actually it's worth less than I've paid. Or even worse than that, the disc isn't in it and I didn't even check. That is something that I may or may not have done at some point in my life, and I'm sure a lot of you have done that as well. So that is a pretty big tip in fairness, and any of these could, I guess, be considered as a very good tip to a beginner, and even some seasoned professionals need reminding of these as well. Can you be a professional video game collector? Anyway, looking at the deal in finer detail and not being too hasty, not pulling that trigger before you've done your research, is a big tip. But I don't think it's the biggest tip I can give you. That came to me in some sort of epiphany the other day, and I've had many of these in my life. A few things sort of came together and I thought, wow, there it is. Wasn't even thinking about the question, but something in my mind just clicked and I thought that is the biggest tip I can give. So I'm looking at my games and I'm thinking, right, I want to do a video, and I mentioned this before, and in fact the next video that I'm going to do is going to explain why I've not done this yet. But I'm looking at my games and I'm thinking of a video game that I can play that I haven't played in a long time, that I want to sit down, give another go and see how I feel about it at the end of 2023. Maybe it's been 10, 20, 30 years since I've played this game and I want to play through it again and I want to make a video about it. So I'm having a little look through, and a fair few things catching my eye. Some PS4 games I haven't played in a while catching my eye, and all of a sudden I look down and I see the Wii collection and my Wii U collection and my GameCube games, and I'm thinking, honestly, I forgot I owned these. I cannot for the life of me remember the last time I fired up any of these consoles. I know the last Wii U game I played was Mario Kart, but I couldn't for the life of me tell you when that was. It must have been months and months ago. And don't get me started on the Wii. I genuinely couldn't tell you what was the last game I played on the Wii. It's been that long. In fact, I don't even know where my Wii is. So what is the tip if that was the revelation? Well, it's pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory at this point, I think, but it's don't collect for a console you don't care about. So what's become more and more apparent to me recently is that I really care about the Xbox 360, and I really care about the Mega Drive, and of course I care about the current generation of consoles. Now it is a little bit weird when we talk about the current gen of consoles, because of course we are talking PS5 and Series X/S, although because of the way that it went and everything that happened and how slow they were to get these consoles out, I do kind of still consider the PS4 and the Xbox One in that generation of consoles as well. So I'm collecting for the PS4/5. I do like the Xbox One side of things, although I don't own one at the moment, so I'm not really pushing that. But the Xbox 360 and the Mega Drive specifically are consoles that I absolutely adore, and I can't ever really see me getting rid of those collections. I just want to add to them constantly. And of course there's the Switch side of things as well, which we're going to just put a pin in over there for, I say for a second, for the rest of this video. We're not going to talk about the Switch. But when it comes to the Wii, the Wii U, they weren't consoles I ever really played. Now I never owned a Wii U when that came out. I'm sure many of us didn't. And the draw to collect for that was something a little bit different to any other console really. So I was kind of pulled into collecting for the Wii U for a few reasons. One, it was niche. It had very limited sales at launch and it didn't go on to do very well, to the point where Nintendo just completely binned it. There weren't that many games released for it on the grand scheme of things when you compare them to other consoles, and there were many people, including myself to some extent, making videos on why you should be buying for the Wii U now because you'll be sorry tomorrow. And fast forward 12, 18 months even, and yep, that's not happened at all. In fact, the Wii U is now cheaper to collect for than it was back then. And I'm talking more on the sort of cheaper side of things. You're looking at the cheaper games rather than the more expensive games. I've got no idea how expensive the top end of the Wii U collection is, if you will. I've got no idea if it's gone up or down, but the games that I own, nearly all of them have come down in price since I originally bought them. So jumping on that bandwagon of I want to be an not an early adopter, obviously, because an early adopter would have been there at launch, but I want to be one of those people who have a sizable collection when the price goes up. That was one of the reasons. The other reason was I missed out on the console and I wanted to experience it. Well, I have done now, and I'm not saying it's a bad console. I actually really do like it, but I never see myself playing it. You know, it's one of those that it's there, and I'm not sad it's there, but I never see myself sitting down and just playing a game. I have done, but I don't really plan on doing that anytime soon. I would much rather pop in a 360 game, jump on the Mega Drive, or go on the PlayStation 5, for example. It's a similar situation with the GameCube. To a certain extent, the prices on the GameCube have just gone, and a couple of them dip every now and again, but I never owned a GameCube, and there are some GameCube games that I really want, and we've picked up a Resident Evil. I have a Universal game because I'm obsessed with theme parks, and there are a few others that have found their way into my collection that I found cheap here or there, but I haven't played them at all, any of them. Ever. I don't even own a GameCube controller. I can't play them, even if I want to. My original plan was to own all of the Resident Evils, and I wanted the originals on the GameCube, because I feel like that would be one of the best places to own them. And yes, they're expensive, and I do still kind of want them, but at the same time, I don't know if I'll ever sit down and play them on the Wii. I think I'd rather play them on the PS4. See, I have things like this, which is the Resident Evil Origins collection. This is the original game, also has Resident Evil 0, and of course I have Resident Evil 2, and there are 3, 4, 5, 6 and so on and so forth, all on the PS4. Now, they're not the true original experience, but in this instance I think I'm actually finally at least ready to make the exception and just settle for what is the game on the PS4. I've realised I don't always need the original to enjoy it. You know, I don't need the original hardware experience in order to enjoy the game. I'd like it to run better. I'd like it to look a little bit better. And if it's on a console that's plugged in downstairs and I can play it in HD or 4K, more's the better. Yes, I love the graphics on the Mega Drive. I love the experience of playing games on the Mega Drive, but if they remade them and they looked a bit more polished, I wouldn't mind playing them on the PS4. Why not? And for certain games, I'm willing to make an exception and only play them on that platform. But that being said, that's the GameCube. And then the Wii is a very similar story. I had one at launch. I worked in Game Station. I was able to be able to buy one because they were like rocking horse, you know what, right? And it was very difficult to get hold of them, but I was lucky enough. I managed to put one aside when they came in on the delivery, bought one, took it home, played Wii Sports for a bit, and thought, well, that's the end of that, and ended up selling it for a profit. I think they sold for like 100 and... what were they 150 or were they 220? I can't remember. Two figures that stick in my mind. I sold it for nearly double what I bought it for at retail, and this was secondhand because I'd already played it because people just needed them that much for Christmas. I don't feel bad about it because that's essentially what we do now, right? We buy things, we flip them, we make a profit, we use the profit to buy other things, right? But anyway, I didn't really play it much when it came out. You know, Wii Sports was probably the extent of it, and maybe House of the Dead, for example, which is a pretty fun experience, to be fair. But I own these games now. I have the console. I don't play it. So what I'm saying is I feel like, in a way at least, I've kind of wasted my time. Very early on in the first season of me building a free video game collection, and we were trying to utilize CEX as much as possible back then. That's why it was called the free trading game collection. I spent a lot of time going after Wii U games and talking about GameCube games, and I even have, I wouldn't say a sizable, but I do have a fair few PS1 games that I've now started to sell off because I just don't care about them. And the PS1 is one of those where I did play it a fair bit, but I only played it for a sort of 6-month period. I had the N64 and the Sega Saturn. Those were the consoles that I played during that era, and then about 6 months, maybe 8 months before the PS2 came out, I finally got my PS1. Not that I'd been waiting for it for any length of time. I just decided I will sell my N64. I traded it all in, and I picked up a PS1, an absolute, I mean, a library of games, because obviously they were going cheap at that point, and the N64 was still a pretty sizable console in terms of value. I got a lot of money for that in an independent video game store in my town called Soft Center, which I will always remember as being the best video game store I've ever been in. With that being said, traded it all in, picked up a PS1, loads of games, sat there for 6 months, 8 months maybe, playing the whole thing, and then got rid of it all and got a PS2. But in that 6 to 8 month period where I was playing PS1 games, I didn't really develop any large attachments to video games. Yes, I love Gran Turismo Turismo, Tony Hawk, GTA, and there are a few other games. I played a bit of Crash, played a bit of Tomb Raider, and I experienced them, and I enjoyed them. Of course I did. But because I didn't play them for years and years, like I did on the N64, the Sega Saturn, the Mega Drive, and even the 360, I didn't develop that level of attachment. So I don't really care about them that much. And I tend to lose interest a little bit when I'm going after these games. So the Wii U, I haven't bought a Wii U game for the longest time. I haven't bought a Wii game in I don't even know how long. And it's the same with the PS1. In fact, I don't think I've gone out of my way to actually buy a PS1 game. They've all sort of just come to me in bundles or something. I kind of couple this question with another question that I had in one of these videos, which was, which is the easiest console to collect for? Now, there's a couple of ways you can look at this. So technically speaking, I suppose the easiest console to collect for will be the cheapest console, right? Because we're not all sat here with hundreds of thousands of pounds in the bank and we can just go out and buy whatever game we want whenever we want. We have to think about these things. So if a console is cheap to buy for, and I answered this with Xbox 360, because it is probably one of, if not the cheapest console to buy for at the moment, because the games, a lot of them anyway, are dirt cheap. They're well under £10. And then there aren't that many games that are at the top end. I don't think there's a game over like 60 quid on that console. You look at any other console, even PS5, because obviously all the new games are 70 plus. PS4, there are plenty of games above that value. And again, they do still release new games for that platform as well. But Mega Drive and SNES, NES, there are plenty of games on those consoles that are, well above that 50, 60 pound mark, well above. Not on the Xbox 360. But just because it's the cheapest console to collect for doesn't necessarily mean it's the easiest. You have to look at the other side of the coin. Yes, all the games are affordable. However, there are more Xbox 360 games than nearly any other platform. I think the PS2 might have more, but the Xbox 360 is definitely top 3 for most games ever produced for a platform. I would imagine anyway. There's a lot of them. PS4 might have caught up, but still, there are a lot. So even though they're cheap, if you have to collect them all, because that's the way you're collecting, it's going to get expensive. My other answer to this question, and I think this is probably the definitive answer, is you need to collect for the console that you love the most. Whether it be the DS, which is a pretty expensive console to collect for in my opinion, because there's a lot of games on there, Pokemon specifically of course, that are very expensive games. But if you love a console, regardless of how much it costs to collect for, you will want to get those games. You will work harder to get those games in your collection because you love it so much. I've hit a lot of the cheaper Mega Drive games, and I do have a couple, 40, 50 quid games in my collection that I'm happy that I've managed to pick up over time. But the majority of my Mega Drive collection, I would say probably £20 and under, maybe even £10 and under games. What was my point? I haven't added a Mega Drive game to my collection in quite a while, but I'm not deterred from collecting from the platform. I've gone after a lot of the cheaper games first. I'm not trying to collect every game on the console. That would be ridiculous. I'm sure there are people out there who have done and are doing that, and more power to you. You keep up the good fight, but I am not interested in doing that. I will be here for the rest of my life and I will run out of room pretty quickly. I've gone after a lot of the cheaper games to get them out of the way first, and I will happily then build towards the bigger games. I do have a couple of 40, 50, 60 pound games in my collection. There aren't many of them. Michael Jackson, Hellfire to name but two. But over time I will add some more expensive games and I'll flesh it out with some of the cheaper ones that I've missed. But that is a console that I love, and even though I have games there that are worth money, I have never ever considered selling them on or swapping them or trading them in or anything. Same with the 360, although it is far easier for me to overlook the 360 when looking for something to sell, for example, because the 360 games that I own for the most part are pretty worthless. I can't think of one game off the top of my head that's worth more than £10 that I own on the 360. Having said that, maybe Tony Hawk American Wasteland. And I think Fist of the North Star has a little bit of value to it as well. But with that being said, they're not expensive games. I've fleshed all of my 360 collection that you can see behind me here with pretty affordable games, and that's what I love about the platform. But another thing I love about it is the nostalgia. I've played that console probably more than any other console that you can think of. It was the time where I worked in a video game store. I had access to these games, but of course I had my own money. I could buy whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. Unlike the Mega Drive, where you used to have to save up pocket money or wait for a special occasion in order to get a game, I didn't play as many as I would have liked. But with the 360, I've played it all. kind of. And those are the two platforms that I will relentlessly collect for. Now, of course, PS5, it's still coming out, it's all brand new and everything, so I'll pick up new releases here or there when they go down in price. For example, fairly recently I've picked up Saints Row. Haven't quite played much of it yet. I've installed it ready, went to play it and then got distracted, which I will talk about in another video. It's actually really getting to me at the moment, this topic I want to talk about. And I will continue to collect for PS5 and PS4 because it's all, you know, fairly new and affordable at the moment as well, which is nice, especially when the games come out for PS5, they don't necessarily do particularly well, or they sell so many that they get traded in it en masse and then they come down in price quicker. And Black Friday recently helped quite a lot with bringing certain prices down as well. But the answer to the definitive question of what is the single best, greatest tip you can give a brand new collector is to only focus on the consoles that you absolutely adore and that you know 100% you're going to play. I would go for nostalgia first if I were you, because that will drive you forward. If you're a nostalgia buff like me, you love anything from the era that you were born and grew up in, that will continue to be there for the rest of your life, I'm sure. It is with me. I'd love to live in an 80s/90s house where everything is decorated to that era and we don't have internet and we have massive TVs with VHSs everywhere. It's actually one of my dreams to have a room in my house that is literally just that. But with that being said, it will always drive me on to collect for the Mega Drive, and with that being said, 360 to a certain extent as well, because I do hold that in sort of nostalgia terms as well. And like I mentioned, I'll go for the newer stuff with PS4, PS5 and Switch, even though I said I wasn't going to mention it again. But when it comes to consoles I've never played or didn't really take much of an interest in, you know, we're talking SNES, for example. I owned one, but very, very brief. Didn't play many games on it, not that bothered. The GameCube, the Wii, the Wii U, I didn't play any of them at all, really. So I don't have any nostalgia feeling for them. Yes, I wouldn't mind sitting down every now and again and maybe playing a game for 20 minutes, but I don't have that draw. I have so many games on these consoles I grew up playing and the current consoles that I need to get through that I don't have time to think about these other ones. I had a Vita at one point and I played it for about a week solid until I decided, you know what, I don't actually care about these games. I would much rather have the originals and I'll wait to get them, because I was using it as an emulator, you know. I didn't have much of any PS Vita games. I wasn't bothered. That's why I got rid of it. The PS3 is kind of in that as well. You know, the Last of Us, for example, came out on the PS3, and those are games that I remember picking up and playing and really enjoying, but at the same time, I can get them remastered on the newer stuff. So do I need a PS3? The PS2, it's different. I don't like collecting for the PS2 for some reason. I don't know why that is, but the PS2 is one of those consoles I had for the longest time. From launch to the day the 360 came out, I played that thing to death across hundreds of games, but for some reason I don't really care to collect for it too much. I have a fair few games for it and I will probably pick up more in the future, but for some reason it's not a console that I'm overly bothered collecting for. I think it might be the look of the games, in all honesty. I know that sounds really stupid, but that spine, the black top, all white bottom, that in a row, to me, I don't know, it's just ugly. I don't like it, and I think that, honestly, I might sound stupid, but I think that might be the main reason why I don't collect for it. I know the nostalgia's there, but it's not as big of a draw as the other consoles for me for some reason. But like I've mentioned before, the draw for me is nostalgia. Experiencing new games, new graphics is awesome, and that will continue with me buying new games and experiencing that. But going back to 360 and Mega Drive is what I'm going to focus on and what I have focused on for the longest time. Am I going to get rid of my Wii, Wii U, GameCube, PS1 and a few other little bits here or there? Games? Possibly, if I'm honest. Yeah, I've thought about it, because why are they there? You know, you go out, you buy them, you think, oh, that's a good deal, I'll get that, and I'll put it into the collection. Just sits there, you never play it, you don't care about it. I forgot they were there. Why do I own them? What's the point? It's a waste of time. Surely someone else is out there who would love to own Paper Mario Color Splash on the Wii U. They've been looking for one for a while. I've got one and I don't care about it. So let me just sell it to them. I'll get a bit of money for it. It's all free at the end of the day on my side of things, because I've made it free from the way that I've done my collection. They need a game, they get it at a slightly discounted price. I get some money back into my fund or just in my pocket to do whatever I want with, and everyone's a winner. And then I can focus on buying the games I actually care about playing, the ones that I do know there on my shelf. I mean, if I could go back and not buy a lot of the PS4 games that I have no intention of playing, or those Wii, Wii U, GameCube games that I really don't have any intention of playing, I would have different games in my collection now. I'd maybe have a bigger 360 collection. Maybe I would have my Xbox One X, because I guarantee guarantee if I sold all my Wii U, GameCube and PS1 side of things, including the consoles and the games and everything, I'd have more than enough money to buy a 1X. In fact, I wager I might even be able to buy a Series X if I sold all of that stuff. So by not collecting the, not crap, but to me, the crap that I don't care about, I could have had something that I cherish. And that is definitely one of the biggest tips that you need to take into collecting if you're new to it. And thinking about it, even if you're a seasoned collector and you own hundreds and thousands of games, but if I asked you, do you own this? You'd go, I don't know. I think you need to ask yourself a question. If you're the type of collector that you just want anything and everything for the sake of it and you don't care if you remember if you have it or not, that's fine, you collect the way you want to collect. But if you're a collector that collects to play these games and you don't know if you own certain things and you can't remember whether you have this or have that, or if I showed you your collection you'd be like, oh, do I have those? I forgot. Do you really need them? Wouldn't you rather get something else? Wouldn't you rather get rid of those and then use that cash to go buy the thing that you want now, the thing that you want to play now, that collector's edition that you want sat there, that game that you've been thinking about for such a long time that you can't afford to buy, you can't justify buying it? Well, maybe sell off some of the collection that you don't care about. And it's easier said than done, fully appreciate that, but I think that's probably where I went wrong in the beginning. I thought being a collector meant I needed to collect for every console I've ever played, and the ones I haven't played I need to collect for as well because I need to experience it. No, that's not the way collecting works. You collect what you want to collect, you don't let anyone tell you otherwise, even though I'm here sat telling you otherwise, and you enjoy it. It's a hobby at the end of the day. You need to collect the way you want to collect, but in my personal experience, collecting things I never intend on playing doesn't make any sense, and I probably will look to get rid of them soon. Let me know in the comments, what do you think is the biggest tip you can give a brand new collector, or maybe someone who has only been collecting a very short period of time. If you want to check out another video from me, maybe one of those Ask Me Anything videos, you can click here, and until the next time, goodbye.